Yeah, hi everybody. Welcome again to India's second Metabolic Health Conference. We are today going to discuss diabetes remission case study with Anup Chaudhary and Abhinav Pathare. Let me give a brief introduction of both. Abhinav Pathare is a public health researcher from India. He received a master's science degree in applied public health from the University of Central Lancashire, England in 2020 with merit classification. His master's thesis focused on facilitating low carb policies in the United Kingdom's national dietary guidelines and received distinction. Abhinav serves as a principal investigator in low carb related contemporary research projects. He has written multiple journal articles and editorials on various public health topics. Abhinav aims to improve public health outcomes through informed policies, strategies, interventions, and communication techniques. He advocates the whole system approach for facilitating low carb supportive policies, which encourages the interdisciplinary and collaborative approach. Anup Bhaskar Rao Chaudhary is an Indian researcher in nutrition sciences, having a couple of research papers published in international journals. Anup is also the founding director of Public Health India, which is PHI, an Indian health advocacy organization and a consultant nutritionist helping a wide range of populations improve metabolic health and quality of life. Anup aims to bring India's specific low carb data into the literature to help public health researchers, mainstream health professionals, and health organizations make informed decisions in designing and improving treatment strategies for better metabolic outcomes in the members of the public. Um, Shashi, would you please
Yeah,
announce? Yeah.
yeah. So I'm so happy to have Anup and Abhinav in this session. While we were fixing the metabolic health to all the invitees and guests, suddenly I got a message from Anup Chaudhary that they have published a case study and they have mentioned Metabolic Health Conference 1, in that case study. And we were so thrilled on two accounts. One is the mention of Metabolic Health Conference in that, and the second is going to be a landmark study in the sense that this is the first ever diabetes remission case study published in a journal from India. There is not a single study which is published on diabetes remission with low carb context. This is what I could gather from whatever I have searched in this country of 100 million or 200 million of diabetes. And immediately we decided to call Anup and Abhinav immediately to this conference, and then we preponed the sessions, and then we thought that we should include them because it's some milestones, very eventful, and we are so proud to have both of you presenting this study today in this conference. Yeah, Anup.
Yeah,
Yeah.
welcome Abhinav and Anup, and congratulations for getting your, case study published. As Shashi said, this being the first, it's a landmark thing to happen, and thank you for mentioning MHC1, that is 2023. Now that means a lot to us. But let's begin with how did you both get interested in low carb?
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much for this heartwarming welcome, Ira, Shashi, and Anup. So basically, I've done my bachelor's in electronics and telecommunication engineering in the year 2013, followed by master's in digital electronics. I have always been into the field of teaching. So before entering into engineering, I started teaching to high school students. My subject was science. So I know what information they have in their textbooks about science, about nutrition. So somewhere around 2017, I first came to know about low carbohydrate diet, and actually it shook me to the core because whatever I was reading in 2017 was in complete contrast what is taught in schools. So intrigued by that, I started reading more and more on low carbohydrate diet. So I read Gary Taubes, Professor Tim Noakes, and so many eminent personalities from the low carbohydrate space. And then I decided to, complete the certification, which I did later from KLM School of Fitness Sciences. And then I founded Public Health India. and eventually got an experience as a senior lecturer in nutrition science. Talking about Public Health India, it is an health advocacy organization aiming to bring more and more research, India specific low carbohydrate research, into the literature and disseminating that information to the public. So that's the background from where I'm coming. And thank you very much for having me and in this historic conference.
Yeah,
Abhinav,
I would like to, yeah, Abhinav,
Abhinav.
welcome, and Anup, yeah.
How did he get into low carb?
Yeah, okay, so I graduated as an engineer in 2013, and after that, due to my chronic interest in sports, I chose sports coaching as a full-time career after that. In 2017, I decided to upgrade myself so that I can provide better information to my students. And 2 years, 2017 and 2018, I spent at the K11 School of Fitness Sciences, and there I got to know that my long-standing nutrition science knowledge was in complete contrast with the good science. And I got obsessed to understand why such things which are likely ineffective converge into the mainstream recommendations, practices, and policies. I started reading extensively, and one word would always hit into my reading, which is public health. So public health authorities, public health dietary guidelines, public health departments. So in 2019, I went to the University of Central Lancashire, United Kingdom, for the Masters of Science in Applied Public Health. I chose my thesis. My thesis was about facilitating low carbohydrate policies into the official national dietary guidelines of United Kingdom. I received distinction in my thesis, and the university board would comment on it as a brave argument. And then when my supervisor asked me after my master's, what you want to do next as a career, I told her that whatever I researched and wrote in light of the United Kingdom, I would love to do the same in light of India. In September 2020, I came back to India. And in 2021, I came up with my first article, which was titled as "Exercise Does Not Solve Obesity, and the Calorie Burning Theory is Misleading and Incorrect." Okay, then this article, not just locally, but internationally, gained a lot of criticism. But then eventually like-minded people joined me. And today, when I'm presenting this paper in your landmark conference, this is my 8th research paper. And that's what my background is. And thank you very much for having me in this milestone conference.
I
Thank
think
you
I
so
can
much.
I can
Yeah.
detect a smile in the face of Anup when both of them told that they are engineers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, more and more engineers should be getting into nutrition, and they are. In fact, on D-Life also, there are many.
Once you're an engineer, you can be anything, and we took it seriously.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, over to Ira.
All right.
Yeah, so Anup and Abhinav, I want to ask you both, what gave you the idea to publish this case study on diabetes remission? That is one. And explain to us, where is it published and its significance?
Sorry.
Okay. So, my vision is always to get more and more India specific low carb data into the literature. So, when this woman approached Public Health India, I involved Abhinav as a principal investigator in this project. And um, initially, right from the beginning, I started collecting data systematically from the viewpoint of getting it published. The reason behind having Abhinav on board is because I was having some past experience working with him. We together have published one review article, which is named as "Contemporary Directions in Fatty Liver Disease in Light of Low Carbohydrate Diet." It was published in the year 2022 in European Journal of Molecular and Clinical Medicine. And I was also aware of the renowned article written on the eminent Mr. Kaizad Kapadia sir as a science protector. So since I was having an experience working with him, so idea came from the vision and the available resources required for the publication. As far as the significance of the journal and the publication is concerned, Abhinav would be the right person to address it.
Okay, so there are 3 things I want to explain in light of the significance. First of all, this paper is published in the Journal of Population Therapeutics and Clinical Pharmacology. And if you would peruse the issues of this journal, you would find several research papers straight from the GMCs, government medical colleges. So it sort of demonstrates the mainstream approval of this journal. Second thing, this journal and so our article is indexed in a database which is called as Embase. And Embase is one of the top-notch databases in the world for the medical literature. So talking about the Embase's magnitude, it has some 45.6 million records, 5.1 million conference abstracts. And Embase also has at least 12 million such records which cannot be found in Medline PubMed. More importantly, Embase, the database where this paper is indexed, is a product of Elsevier. It is developed by Elsevier. You might be aware of this logo somewhere in the academic publishing. This is Elsevier, and this is one of the top tier scientific publisher, including medical textbooks. So if you, for example, Guyton and Hall textbook of physiology, which is a staple textbook for decades now, it is published by Elsevier. And more importantly, the first ketogenic textbook that edited by Nutrition Network and Professor Tim Knox, it is published by Academic Press INC, which is again an imprint of Elsevier. So in light of all of these things, here is my third point, that Anup Chaudhary and I are extremely happy to announce that Shashikant, Anup, Ira and their landmark conference has officially now penetrated the mainstream medical literature. And we are grateful that we are the first to do this. That's the significance.
Thank you. That's really a very, very, very significant. So please, either one of you could tell me what all preparations went into this. How easy or how difficult was it?
Okay, so this is an interesting question. So when we took this participant as a member, initially the intervention went for 2.5 months approximately. And after that, it took almost 1 month for critically analyzing the data. Now, when we talk about the publication of the research, it is not just conveying the results, but to discuss those results in light of what other researchers have observed in implementing the same kind of interventions. And hence, it took rigorous efforts in literature search and the literature review. It took somewhere around 2 months. And then we entered into the major phase of it, which is around 6 months in properly documenting the case study, that is manuscripting it, writing it. And after that, around 1 month we took for in-text citation, then proofreading, then formatting the references, and internal peer review process. Now, internal peer review process is getting the sensitive information proofread one more time before we send it for publication, because it is very responsible things that we have to do. We cannot do any kind of mistakes in that. And after that, somewhere around 4-5 months, approximately 4 months, it took to get published officially. So 4 months, because reviewers will take their time, then the editors need their time. So the entire process of publication is little time consuming. So these are the preparations in brief that we took.
And you asked that how easy or difficult it was to get published, and that's an important question. And there are just two things I want to share here. First, this is what Professor Tim Knox said in the last Metabolic Health Conference, that if there is anything related to low carbohydrate diet, it would be forbidden in the literature publications. So, okay, maybe low carbohydrate manuscripts are subject to tremendous rejections, but this can be solved. And one way to solve this is that you got to be proactively contacting the editors and the journals before writing the manuscripts. I'm not saying before conducting the experiment, but before writing it down, because every journal has different topic expectations. Every journal has different policies, terms and conditions, formattings. And if you could anticipate that while writing, it reduces the chance of getting rejected. And the second point, and the last point is very important, is that you must avoid declarative statements. For example, if your study finds that saturated, or if your study somehow proves that saturated fats are bad or unhealthy, the scientific way to write down in your paper is that saturated fats are probably unhealthy. And this is how Gary Taubes would explain this, that if you think you have proved something, the history of science suggests that you will be eventually proven wrong at some point. There is a famous quote by Richard Feynman. He says that the first principle of science is not to fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. So a good researcher or a scientist would always discuss his findings tentatively so that he can back off when it gets disproved, and he can rethink his hypothesis and work on the new study. And that's how science grows, with an open mindset. And our benefit was that we were having this in our mind when we were writing the manuscript. So I wouldn't say it was easy for us to publish, but it was relatively less difficult for us to get it published.
Thank you for that. I think Anup can take the next question if you want.
Yeah, so if I get it right, I think from start to finish, it was around 18 months.
15
roughly?
months.
15 months, right?
And could I just add one point here, like on 15 months?
Yeah, okay.
So
having,
yeah,
please carry on.
Okay, so talking about the length it took to publish, I'm just like shedding light on it. 15 months, but we have it is important to note that this case study is extensive. So usually the case study has a word count of 1,500 to 2,000 words, and this case study is 8,500 words, including references. And usually the case study would include 10 to 15 references, but our research paper, our case study includes 53 robust, critically analyzed references. And the reason we did it in so much of details because we didn't just want to publish it, but also want to set a reference for the people that may like to do the same. And that's the length of it.
Okay, so that
please
was
tell us
pretty.
about. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll ask this question and maybe you can add later. So please tell us about the case study, Anup and Abhinav, in detail. What was it? And if you want, you can present a few slides if you wanted to do that. But please tell us about the case itself.
So the participant is a 65-year-old Indian woman struggling with diabetes for more than 4 years. And recently she had undergone knee replacement surgery on both the knees. So when she approached us, I commenced the intervention, low carbohydrate intervention, by replacing grains with the naturally occurring sources of fats and proteins, first class proteins, of course, and the saturated fats. Now, since the knees were operated, exercise was not there in the intervention. It was out of question. The results that we obtained, the results are astonishing. So her HbA1c dropped from 7.10 to 6.0. Her body weight dropped from 78 to 71.5. Her triglycerides to high density lipoprotein ratio improved from 4.23 to 2.65, which is considered as one important marker for heart health. And this happened within 2.5 months of intervention without calorie control and exercise intervention. That is the important point to know. Now, the implications of this case study is enormous because the first piece of advice, the mainstream advice that people get in such conditions is exercise more and then eat less. When we talk about the youngsters, they can at least attempt to do it. And then eventually they come to know that it doesn't work. And then they try to find out some alternative paths to get rid of those problems. But when we talk about geriatrics, senior citizens, now for them challenges are completely different. And practically this advice, calorie control and exercise, is practically not doable. So they find it very difficult to follow it, and hence they remain in that blame that they are not getting the results because they are not actually following it. But the reason why they are not following, because it is not practically doable, right? So this case study has an enormous implication that for geriatrics population, this is a good direction that how they can take charge of their health with a good scientific understanding.
Correct.
So that's the direction that we want to give.
So, Anup, I would like to add to what you said, this SICO model, eat less, move more, that has been abject failure. And
Of course.
the most famous failure I would quote is look ahead protocol study. $100 million burnt, a 13-year study, federally funded, designed for 13 years. The failure was so epic that in 12th year, they just dumped the study and moved on. And
Yeah.
no magazine, no literature, no media picked that study up. Even to say that, yes, we have failed, eat less, move more does not work.
All right.
But the problem is mainstream is still harping on that point. Now,
Correct.
given this background, how do you think your study would impact the general Indian in the Indian context?
Okay. So that's the interesting question. Whenever we want to implement some change, dietary change, especially implementing low carbohydrate change, it can be, implemented in two ways. One is through the strategies and the policies, and second at the frontline level. Now, looking at the low carbohydrate space in India, relatively the practice of low carbohydrate is increasing a lot. But then, in relation to that, the footprints of these low carbohydrate data into literature, India specific especially, is very less. We can say it is hardly there is any data available on India when we talk about low carbohydrate. So this case study serves as an example, and it initiates the movement of publishing, getting the low carbohydrate data into the publication.
Yeah.
So that's the impact that this case study is making for the future researchers, those who will, in the contemporary, ways, when they will look back, they will get these kind of research papers and they can then build their practice on it.
Did you
There,
find implementing this dietary pattern little difficult? Any one of you
Uh,
can answer, Abhinav or Anup.
yeah. So talking about the challenges that we faced on implementing, so the first of all, old age is a challenge in itself. And then apart from that, long-standing beliefs on nutrition, long-standing dietary habits is another challenge. And we mitigated that challenge by, introducing high intervention intensity uh, or high intensity intervention, low carbohydrate intervention. Now, Iqbal et al. 2010 suggests that high intensity low carb intervention is more effective compared to low intensity low carbohydrate intervention. So we implemented a high intensity intervention which includes behavior modifications and age related communication suggested by National Institute of Aging. And then age friendly communication was built, and the support of the family members was taken, and then we, gave personalized diet chart recipes to help, rigorous counseling sessions and the follow up sessions. And apart from that, we also, uh, navigate them through the festive and the cultural situations. And after this solving these, challenges, we could get the results what we are observing in the research.
right.
Yeah, Ira.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
can we?
yeah.
Yeah, Abhinav.
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
Abhi.
Abhinav.
I just wanted to add on this, the impact it would leave in the low carbohydrate space. There is one more layer to it. I hope this case study sets an example that even the people from the diverse academic backgrounds can penetrate into the official medical literature. And I hope this goes long. And that's it.
Mm, mhm. So
In
while you were
short,
doing
he's
the
saying,
research, yeah, Anup, please
yeah, in
carry.
short, he's saying, that it's time that pushback becomes a bit mild from where it is coming.
Mhm.
Right, Abhinav? Because we know where the
Absolutely.
pushback comes from.
Absolutely. You got it.
So yeah, so
Yeah, Ira.
while you were doing the research for this case study, can we discuss what were your findings about low carb or the history of low carb? How long? I mean, Where do we go back in history? Where did you find the history of low carb coming from?
Okay, this is a big question, and it may need a session in itself. But I would try to brief it in the context of India. Okay, to start with, first of all, if you want to look at the literature, 1835 is a good starting point because the English Education Act was passed. So the local literature was kind of sidetracked, and the Calcutta Medical School and Hospital was established. And for any researcher, it would be a good strategy to start with investigating the data of that hospital, what happened there, so that we can understand the prevalence incidence of diabetes, or at least the gestation of it. But I cannot go into it in detail because of the time restriction. But since I'm in a conference, I would like to cover the history of conferences here. So 1907, which is around 115 years back from today, it was 1907, and the British Medical Association's annual conference was held. This was one of the first occasions where the Indian diabetes has received importance in the West. This conference was held in United Kingdom. Okay, I'm not talking about the low carbohydrate approach, but just a diabetes. Talking about the low carbohydrate approach, in 1890, Frederick Pavey has published a groundbreaking article, and he supported the use of low carbohydrate approach in light of diabetes. And he published that article in the Indian Medical Gazette, IMG. And IMG was perhaps one of the most important journal at that time. So if you want to look at any advances in low carbohydrate or insulin therapy, you got to see into IMG. But now the thing is, I want to imply it in the current situation that now we have more people like Pavey, at least hundreds of them, if not thousands. But there was a gap in relation to the conferences, and that gap was significant. And I want to signify that gap by asking question to the listeners of this conference, that since that 1907 conference where the Indian diabetes has received attention in West, till 2022, I'm not saying 2023, till 2022, in the span of this 115 years, could you find a single conference that is especially focused on low carbohydrate intervention in light of Indian diabetes? And if you could find it, you can send it to me or us. And if you couldn't, this means that this gap of 115 years seems to be filled up in 2023 through MHC1. And that is the significance of that conference, because it didn't attracted only the attention of West, but the whole world looking at the speakers that were there. So this made us to include this conference and the catalyzers behind this conference in this paper.
I think that is very, very significant.
It is.
Indian Medical Gazette. Okay, so long back, there is a mention of Frederick Pavey. I really don't know how many people in India know about this.
Exactly. That's the reason we added.
I would dare to say none.
And the first conference.
Yeah, please elaborate, Abhinav.
Yeah, also about this 1907 conference, barely people know about this.
No one knows. Even for the matter, even we never knew. See, we have been doing in-depth study of everything. Probably we have not studied our own country well.
No, it's about when we go into the look about history, we usually visit United Kingdom's literature or American literature, and we barely visit back into the Indian literature, which is really interesting. And if you could see the phase from pre-independence area till the discovery of insulin, you will find the data there.
Because we have that preconceived idea that we are not going to find India specific low carbohydrate data into the literature. Because of that, we never try to find it out. But we have to change that mindset now.
But that's interesting. Yeah, this question was interesting. Thank you for asking that.
And going ahead, what do you think would be the other challenges in India in applying? See, you addressed this in some part earlier also, but what do you think would be the more challenging part in applying low carb nutrition in our context, other than or you can add to whatever you said?
Yeah.
So addressing this, first of all, low carbohydrate approach is the need of an hour in India. We need it now, anyhow. Looking at the metabolic conditions of the people of India, it is the emergency. The challenge is especially when we talk about, so uh, in India, science follows, these athletes and actors. These are the celebrities, and when they come on the media, people take their opinion as an advice and they try following it. That is one major challenge. I think ideally it should be other way around. Whether we talk about the celebrities, actors, or athletes, or the normal population, we should follow science. So that is one gap I see. And second, the conventional uh, advice that people get from the mainstream is not changing at all. And whatever we are discussing here is in complete contrast to what they are saying. So it
Yes.
becomes sometimes very challenging to, erase that data from the people's mind and then imbibing something new into their head. Because when we talk, it is like talking to the entire so many years of conditioning, you see. So these are the major two challenges I find. Abhinav may have to add on that, I
Well,
guess.
I have one study to add here, which is relating to the information seeking behavior of professionals. It's not about public, it's not about celebrities, but it's straight about the mainstream professionals, for example, physicians and doctors. So this study conducted by Davis 2007, what he did, he wanted to understand the information seeking behavior of physicians. Like what do they prefer while consuming the clinical information, the, the, the medium they prefer about it. And he included doctors across the globe in this study, from America, England, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Denmark, Singapore. Therefore, the results are likely to be reliable. And what he found, that reading research papers or using research papers as a knowledge consumption was the third choice. It wasn't the first. And ideally, evidence-based medicine suggests that this should be the one of the most, like at least the top pillar of the evidence-based medicine to update your knowledge. Their second preference for consuming knowledge was their personal contacts and personal phone calls and peer opinions. And again, evidence-based medicine challenges exactly this. And their first preference was textbook, which is fine. But as you said in the previous session of this conference, that textbook may take time to get updated. So I think this is a challenge for the low carbohydrate movement in India. And if we could somehow shift the information seeking behaviors of mainstream professionals, it may work. And there are ways to do this, but I may not be able to mention them here because of the timeline. But I
Abhinav,
think
one
that's the
question,
problem.
yeah, one question. I mean, it's an impromptu one. How much do you think does the speaking fee, weekend speaking fee, influences the opinion? Because you talked of, preferences 1, 2, 3. Where does the speaking fee component land, fourth or first?
Speaking
In
fee.
your opinion? Yeah. Weekend speaking fees for doctors who go around talking about medicines and all.
I don't understand. Speaking fee as a factor in it.
Shashi can maybe elaborate on it if he wants.
It's okay. I think you can shift to the next question. Anup.
That is-
So I think it's Anoop's question.
Acha, now what?
Anup.
Question is all done. Yeah.
Then I think let me ask, how much impact do you think this particular study will create in India? Is my question.
I think this
This has been covered.
I want to add to this. Yeah.
All right.
How much impact do you think? See, you addressed this to some extent earlier, but let me ask you, reiterate again, how much impact you think it is going to have, this particular case study? Though you had, from your side, you're not claimed that title of being the first case study remission. So, but what do you think, in what all way it can impact? Pertaining to the study, you can just mention, either one of you or both of you can mention.
All right. So
This
first of all, when we talk about the impact, it depends in what dimension you are expecting the impact of it. The first impact that I would again like to emphasize that this may set an example that no matter what academic background do you have, This is still doable, and we need to increase the footprint. And in order to increase the footprints, we cannot rely on just one profession, because there are diverse people into this. So what I hope this case study will bring into this low carbohydrate space is to encourage more and more people with different academic backgrounds and different cognitive skill sets to come on the board and start pushing this movement. And because and whether it's first or not, but it's still the rare, and it still signifies the gap. It still signifies that the gap is extreme between the implication or like implementation of this approach and the publication of this approach. So the gap is still there. Like so the impact is always justified, whether it's first, second, third. It's like that.
So I think it is the first.
Anu.
So it is the first case study of its kind, because when I also searched literature, I did not find any which is, in light of low carbohydrate Indian specific. So we can say that of its kind, it is the first one. Right, Abhinav? We have done a lot of search for that. Yeah. Correct.
I will say for the
So
matter of any first.
yeah. So having done so far, what are your future plans, Anup and Abhinav?
Okay. So I am working on one significant project, which is on, publishing a rigorous review article on obesity in light of carbohydrate insulin model. So I am the lead author of it. The other significant contributor in that review article is none other than Shilpi Arora ma'am. She's my guru. And the reason why I chose is because of her enormous understanding of the subject. And apart from that, in last year, I discussed the same with Abhinav also. And thankfully, he accepted that. And I am involving him also, because he has a similar kind of research paper published, a review article published in the year 2021 about exercise. So in the upcoming months, maybe 2 or 3 months, we are going to release that new article. And Abhinav always have some diverse plans, so I guess he must be having something new to share.
Okay, so what I plan and what I get are two different things, and I'm serious about this. But in the near future, I look forward to finish the project that Anup just mentioned about, and simultaneously, I'm working on an article which will not be published in medical or public health journal, but in the law journal. It deals with medical negligence, and the aim of that article is to inform how India handles the cases about medical negligence.
Very interesting. So, last question, Anup and Abhinav. What is your message to India, to both of you?
All right, so I have one important message to give to young generation of low carb practitioners. So, you see, when we discuss about low carbohydrate approach, especially with our clients, they tend to ask more and more questions, because from the background from where they are coming and the information that they get from different resources is same conventional understanding. So they tend to ask more questions, and then the practitioners may get agitated by that. So one important suggestion I have here is to handle these people, especially geriatrics, with empathy, and having patience while interacting, and then addressing each and every question of them with a proper scientific understanding, so that we can bring big change in the space of low carbohydrate nutrition. So that's the message I have.
Abhinav?
I've many, but when I need to keep on top, is that just like Mr. Singh? I'm calling him Mr. Singh because there are two Anups in this frame.
Yeah, right.
So Mr. Singh mentioned about the protocol study and how dollars after dollars are going into the research to prove science behind low carbohydrate approach. Now I think there is a time to shift this investment towards the policy, towards the research which could be used to inform the policies. I'm not saying it's completely possible, or I'm not saying that it's simple. I understand that there are challenges, but at least even if we systematically highlight the challenges, then may not be us, but the upcoming generation would pick up from that, and they would take it further. So it's time to shift the focus from not shifting the focus, but also to give some focus to the policy-related research. That's the message.
Yeah. So now we still have 5 minutes, and we can take up a couple of questions. There's the questions live from the live question from the audience. The person wants to ask, what was the food she was taking in LCHF? Was she following intermittent fasting or fasting of any kind?
Okay, so I did not suggest any kind of intermittent fasting or staying hungry. She was eating as per her satiety and hunger. The food sources that I included in her diet was the first class sources of protein, like meat, white and red, both meats, then dairy products, and along with that, some seafood. That was mainly added into her. And sometimes to navigate the situation, I could give some like protein shake or something as an option.
Fine. So another question is, I want to ask you a hypothetical question, though we know the answer practically. Like, this is a case of someone who's having non-vegetarian food. So you think this can be replicated in vegetarians also who are lacto-vegetarians or lacto-vegetarians?
Yeah, we take the cases of lacto-vegetarians as well, because when we talk about true food now, so you don't have to, refeed yourself constantly. Having 2 meals a day will keep you sorted. So there are so many people I am handling, and I'm sure that you must be handling too. The people are coming from the vegetarian background and they are comfortably following it. At least they can be on the low carbohydrate diet, not a complete cut down of sugar if not possible. So at least we can say low carbohydrate diet, and they can achieve tremendous results.
So in this particular case study, were there any reluctance and resistance from the family? And if so, what have you done to address that? Did you do anything on a priority basis, or did you foresee these, and what actions you took?
No, so in fact, this is very interesting, and that is the reason in my message I particularly mentioned that we have to be empathetic with them. Uh, so there was a reluctance because both of them, because the lady was 65-year-old, so a lot of reluctance and the cultural beliefs that they are having. So we had to give a lot of references. We had to give some mind opening scenarios, that what is going on and then how these diseases are rising. So when I introduced her the proper literature, the data, which is of course not coming from India, she understood it, and then family members also started supporting eventually when they saw results.
Great, great. So Anup and Abhinav, thank you very much. Our time is up, and I wanted to congratulate both of you for this historic milestone. And let me tell you, today it is surprising that a two non-medico could publish the first ever low carb remission case study in India, whereas we have big diabetologists practicing in India with multi-center, multi-staff, but not one of them could produce one single case study. So hats off to both of you, and we would love to have you in future in our conferences with more publications. Thank you.